The wind on Threer 9 didn't howl. It screamed. It clawed at the ancient storage tower, with fingers of ice seeking entry through every crack and crevice in the weathered structure. The planet wasn't merely cold, it was hostile, as if the very atmosphere resented the presence of life. Temperatures regularly plummeted to negative 120 degrees Celsius, and tonight, amid the worst blizzard of the season, it felt even colder. Wayne Everett stared through the reinforced window of his makeshift living quarters, watching ice crystals form intricate patterns across the transparent aluminum. The ancient tower had once been a data storage facility for a civilization long extinct, its technology so advanced that even after millennia, some systems still functioned. The biothermal lighting cast a soft blue glow throughout the chamber, responding to his presence with a gentle pulsing that mirrored his breathing. It was the closest thing to company he'd had in months. 327 days. He murmured to himself, his breath condensing in the air, despite the heating systems working at maximum capacity. The Earth Archaeological Alliance had placed him here to document and preserve what remained of this dead world's knowledge. But lately, he'd begun to wonder if the isolation was worth the discoveries. Wayne moved to his workstation, where fragments of alien text scrolled across holographic displays. The language of Threer 9's former inhabitants was as intricate as the ice patterns outside, beautiful, complex, and ultimately cold. Though he'd made progress in deciphering it, each translation brought more questions than answers. "System increase temperature by 2 degrees, he commanded, and the hidden mechanisms hummed in acknowledgement. The brief increase in warmth was a luxury he rarely allowed himself. Resources were precious, and his supply drop wasn't scheduled for another 42 days. He gazed up at the glass-ceiling dome that crowned the tower. Normally, it offered a breathtaking view of Threer 9's 3 moons and the galaxy beyond, but tonight, it revealed only the fury of the storm. Swirling snow obscured everything, making the tower feel even more isolated, a tiny bubble of warmth and life in an ocean of frozen hostility. Wayne checked his instruments. The storm was intensifying. Wind speeds had reached 170 kilometers per hour, and the external temperature had dropped another 5 degrees in the past hour. He'd lived through blizzards before, but something about this one felt different, more primal, more threatening. The archaeologist moved to his small cooking unit and prepared a simple meal of nutrient-dense, synthetic proteins. It wasn't tasty, but it would keep him alive. As he ate, he recalled his last communication with Earth, when his supervisor had asked if he wanted to be relieved early. Pride had made him refuse. Wayne Everett didn't quit, not since the Proxima Centauri disaster. 7 years ago, his mistranslation of an alien warning had led to the deaths of 17 colonists. He'd been cleared of legal responsibility. The error was deemed an understandable one, given the complexity of the language, but Wayne had never forgiven himself. This self-imposed exile on Threer 9 was his penance, his way of ensuring he never made such a mistake again. He was halfway through his tasteless meal when he heard a sound so unexpected that at first he thought he'd imagined it. But there it was again, 3 distinct taps against the tower's outer door, almost imperceptible beneath the screaming of the wind. Someone or something was outside. Wayne froze fork halfway to his mouth. It was impossible. The nearest human outpost was over 2,000 kilometers away. There were no indigenous life forms on Threer 9. Nothing had survived the cataclysm that had frozen this world millennia ago. Yet the sound came again, more insistent this time. Moving with careful precision, Wayne activated the door's external camera. The image was partially obscured by ice and snow, but he could make out a figure huddled against the door, humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. Its skin, visible where a torn protective suit had been ripped away, was a pale blue that seemed almost luminescent against the white of the snow. "What the hell?" Wayne whispered. The figure raised its head, revealing large almond-shaped eyes that reflected the camera's light. It, she, Wayne somehow knew, pressed a 6-fingered hand against the door. Her lips moved, forming words he couldn't hear. Every protocol told him to ignore the visitor. Unauthorized contact with alien species was strictly forbidden, without proper containment and documentation procedures. But something in those eyes, a consciousness, a desperate intelligence made Wayne reach for the door release. "System prepare decontamination chamber and medical diagnostic," he ordered. "I'm bringing in a visitor." The tower's systems hummed in acknowledgement as Wayne descended to the entrance level. The inner door of the airlock slid open, and he crossed to the outer door, his heart pounding. He hesitated for just a moment before pressing the release. The door hissed open, and the full fury of the storm invaded the small chamber. Snow and ice pelted Wayne's face as he peered into the darkness. For a terrible moment he thought the figure had been blown away, or had simply collapsed and died in the minutes it had taken him to reach the door. Then he saw her barely clinging to a metal handhold beside the entrance. Her protective suit, clearly not designed for Threer 9's extreme conditions, was torn in multiple places. Frost had formed on her exposed blue skin, and her breathing was shallow and labored. Without hesitation, Wayne stepped out and wrapped an arm around the alien's slender frame, pulling her into the airlock. Her body was surprisingly light, almost fragile against his. As the outer door sealed behind them and the decontamination sequence began, she collapsed entirely, her weight suddenly dead in his arms. "System expedite decontamination and prepare medical bay." Wayne commanded, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through him. The alien's eyes fluttered open as warm air filled the chamber. She looked at Wayne, and in a voice that sounded like crystal breaking, she spoke words in a language he had never heard before. Before he could respond, she reached for the clasp of her ruined suit with trembling fingers. To Wayne's shock, she began to remove the protective garment entirely, revealing more of her blue skin, which was marked with intricate patterns that might have been natural or artificial, he couldn't tell. Her movements were ceremonial, deliberate, despite her obvious weakness. As the inner door opened, granting access to the tower proper, the alien sank to her knees before Wayne. She extended her arms to him, palms up in what was clearly a gesture of offering. "I don't understand," Wayne said, though he knew she couldn't comprehend his words. He reached down to help her up, but she flinched, as if expecting something else entirely. Once more, she spoke in that crystalline voice, a single phrase repeated with increasing urgency. Then, to Wayne's horror, she reached for his hand and guided it to her throat. In a gesture that couldn't be misinterpreted, she was offering herself to him, her body, perhaps even her life, in exchange for shelter. "No," Wayne said firmly, pulling his hand away. "That's not necessary here." The alien's large eyes widened in confusion, perhaps fear. She tried again to offer herself, her movements becoming more desperate. Wayne knelt beside her, careful to maintain some distance. He pointed to himself. "Wayne," he said clearly. Then he pointed to her, raising his eyebrows in question. For a long moment she stared at him, uncomprehending. Then understanding dawned in those alien eyes. She placed a six-fingered hand on her chest and whispered, "Kaya." "Kaya," Wayne repeated. He gestured to the corridor that led deeper into the tower. "Come, you're safe here." Though clearly bewildered by his refusal of what must have been a culturally significant offering, Kaya eventually allowed Wayne to help her to her feet. He guided her to the medical bay, where the system's automated diagnostics began scanning her unfamiliar physiology. Wayne watched as the scanner worked, trying to process what had just happened. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why had she arrived alone in a storm that would kill most species within minutes? And most disturbingly, what kind of culture had taught her that offering her body, perhaps even her life, was the price for simple shelter? The scanner completed its work, displaying results that were largely inconclusive. Kaya's biology was similar enough to humanoid standards that the system could confirm she wasn't in immediate danger, but unique enough that it couldn't offer specific treatment recommendations. She sat on the edge of the examination table, watching Wayne with those large, expressive eyes. Her protective suit lay discarded on the floor, leaving her clad only in what appeared to be a simple undergarment made of a metallic fabric. The intricate patterns on her skin, which Wayne had first noticed in the airlock, extended across her entire body, swirling designs that reminded him of star charts. Wayne retrieved a thermal blanket and offered it to her. Kaya stared at it for a moment before accepting wrapping it around her shoulders with a gesture that seemed almost grateful. "You're safe here," Wayne repeated, knowing she couldn't understand his words, but hoping his tone conveyed his meaning. "I'll help you if I can." Kaya inclined her head in what might have been acknowledgement. Then, with careful deliberation, she reached into a hidden pocket in her discarded suit and withdrew a small object, a pendant of some kind, hanging from a chain of an iridescent metal. She held it out to Wayne, not as an offering this time, but as if showing him something of great significance. The pendant contained two intertwined symbols that reminded Wayne of DNA helixes, though distinctly alien in design. As Kaya held it, her fingers traced the patterns with what seemed like reverence, or perhaps grief. Wayne pointed to the pendant, then to Kaya, raising his eyebrows in question. Kaya's expression changed, a shadow passing over her features. She closed her hand around the pendant and pressed it to her chest. With her other hand, she reached out as if grasping for someone who wasn't there, then brought her empty hand back to her heart beside the pendant. The message was clear enough: someone missing, someone lost. Someone connected to her as intimately as the intertwined symbols on the pendant. "I'm sorry," Wayne said softly, the inadequacy of his words striking him, even though she couldn't understand them. For the first time since her arrival, Kaya's composure broke. A single tear, opalescent, almost luminous in the medical bay's light, traced a path down her blue cheek. Wayne felt something shift inside him, a breaking of the ice that had formed around his heart during his self-imposed exile. Whatever had brought Kaya to his door, whatever she was running from or searching for, she was alone and in pain. Just as he was. "System," he said, not taking his eyes from Kaya. "Begin basic linguistic analysis of our guest's speech patterns. Priority level maximum." As the system acknowledged his command, Wayne made a decision that he knew might violate protocols, but felt undeniably right. He would help Kaya, not just with immediate shelter from the storm, but with whatever had driven her to his remote tower on this frozen world. The storm outside intensified, ice particles striking the tower with renewed fury. But inside, something had changed. The lonely outpost that had been Wayne's prison now sheltered two souls, each bearing their own wounds, each seeking something they had lost. And in that moment, as Kaya's luminous eyes met, his Wayne felt the first stirring of warmth he had experienced in 327 days of exile. The night passed with an uneasy tension. Wayne prepared a sleeping space for Kaya in a small adjacent chamber that had once been a data processing node, but now served as an impromptu guest quarter. She accepted his guidance with a mixture of caution and what seemed like bewilderment at his continued refusal to acknowledge her initial offering. When he brought her synthesized food, she examined it carefully, before consuming it with methodical precision, betraying neither enjoyment nor distaste. Wayne noticed that she avoided direct eye contact during this process, as if dining together held some significance in her culture that she was carefully navigating. Wayne slept fitfully that night, his dreams filled with swirling snow and alien eyes. He woke several times to check the environmental controls and to confirm that Kaya remained safely in her quarters. Each time he found her either sleeping in a peculiar curled position or sitting perfectly still, staring at the pendant that never left her possession. Morning on Thrur 9 brought no real change in lighting. The perpetual storm ensured that but Wayne's internal clock roused him after 6 hours of fragmented sleep. He found Kaya already awake, examining the ancient inscriptions etched into the walls of the main chamber with evident interest. "Good morning," Wayne said, the greeting automatic despite their language barrier. Kaya turned to him, her head tilting slightly. She pressed a 6-fingered hand to her chest and spoke a phrase in her crystalline language. Though the words were unintelligible, Wayne recognized it as a greeting. System translation status, Wayne inquired. Basic phonemic analysis complete, the system replied. Insufficient data for meaningful translation. Current vocabulary 0 words. Estimated time to basic communication 7 days with continuous input. 7 days was too long. Wayne needed to establish communication more quickly. He approached Kaya and gestured to himself. Wayne, he said clearly, as he had the night before. Then he pointed to various objects around the room, naming each one: table, chair, light, water. Kaya observed him with intense focus. After he had named several items, she pointed to the table. Table, she repeated, her alien vocal cords, transforming the word slightly. Wayne nodded encouragingly. Yes, table. Yes, Kaya echoed. Table. For the next several hours, they engaged in this basic exchange, building a rudimentary shared vocabulary. Kaya proved to be an astonishingly quick learner, absorbing new words with a facility that suggested either an extraordinary intelligence or previous experience with language acquisition, perhaps both. By midday, they had progressed to simple phrases. Wayne prepared another meal using the opportunity to introduce food-related terms. As they ate, he attempted more complex communication. Where from? He asked, pointing to Kaya, and then gesturing broadly upward toward the storm-obscured sky. Kaya considered the question clearly, understanding its intent, if not its exact grammar. She rose and moved to the window, pointing to a specific section of the sky currently hidden by clouds and storm. Lisa Thea, she said the word musical in her alien intonation. She then made a sweeping gesture that encompassed a much larger region of space. Empire of the Eternal Pattern. Wayne's pulse quickened. He knew of Lysithea, a star system, approximately 40 light-years from 309, but the Earth Archaeological Alliance had no record of advanced civilizations there. If Kaya came from an interstellar empire based in that region, it represented a first-contact situation of the highest significance. Why here? He asked, gesturing to encompass the tower and the frozen planet beyond. Kaya's expression darkened. She touched the pendant at her throat, and that same shadow of grief crossed her features. She made a series of gestures that Wayne interpreted as representing flight pursuit and hiding. Though her vocabulary in his language was still limited, the emotion behind her pantomime was unmistakable. She was a refugee running from something or someone. Safe, Wayne said firmly, pointing to her and then to the tower around them. You safe here. Kaya studied his face as if trying to determine his sincerity. After a long moment, she nodded once. Safe, for now. The qualifier sent a chill through Wayne that had nothing to do with 309's frozen atmosphere. Whatever had driven Kaya to flee her home hadn't simply disappeared because she'd found temporary shelter. They were merely in the eye of a storm that was both literal and figurative. As the day progressed, Wayne showed Kaya his work, the translations of 309's ancient records, the cataloging of artifacts, the preservation of knowledge from a civilization that had perished millennia ago. Though their communication remained basic, her interest seemed genuine, and more than once she corrected his interpretations of certain symbols with gestures that suggested alternative meanings. By evening, the storm outside had begun to wane, though the wind still howled around the tower's upper levels. Wayne accessed the long-range sensors, confirming what he had suspected. This had been no ordinary weather event. The storm's intensity and duration had far exceeded seasonal norms, suggesting it might have been artificially generated or at least amplified. Had someone been trying to flush Kaya out, or perhaps prevent her from reaching a specific destination? Wayne turned to find Kaya watching him, her large eyes reflecting the glow of the monitor. Storm ending, he said, pointing to the meteorological data. Others come, she replied, her newly acquired vocabulary sufficient to convey her fear. Who? Wayne asked. Who comes? Kaya's six-fingered hand closed around her pendant. Reclamation, she said, the word carrying a weight that transcended their linguistic limitations. Before Wayne could ask for clarification, A low rumble vibrated through the tower, causing dust to sift down from the ancient ceiling. It wasn't the wind this time. It was something beneath them, deep in the foundations of the structure. Kaya's eyes widened in alarm. She moved to Wayne's side and placed her hand on the console, typing a rapid sequence that somehow bypassed the security protocols. The screen changed to display a schematic of the tower that included levels Wayne hadn't known existed, vast subterranean chambers that extended far below the surface. "Energy cells," Kaya said, pointing to glowing points in the deepest chamber. "Ancient, dangerous, moving." Wayne stared at the schematic in disbelief. The Earth Archaeological Alliance had declared Threr 9 a dead world, devoid of functioning technology, beyond the basic systems in the tower. If active energy cells existed below, especially ones powerful enough to register on sensors, after thousands of years it changed everything about his mission. Another rumble shook the tower stronger this time. A warning light flashed on the console. "Structural integrity compromised in lower level 7, the system announced. "Recommend immediate evacuation to upper levels." Kaya grabbed Wayne's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "No up," she said urgently. "Down, must secure cells or—" She didn't have the vocabulary to finish her thought, but her expression conveyed the severity of the situation. Whatever was happening in the chambers below wasn't just a threat to the tower. It was potentially catastrophic on a much larger scale. Wayne had a choice to make. Protocol dictated that he contact the Alliance, immediately report the discovery of the energy cells and the arrival of Kaya, and await instructions. But the communication delay would be hours, and whatever was happening below wasn't going to wait. "Show me," he said, reaching for his emergency pack. He stuffed it with portable lighting, basic tools, and medical supplies. "Show me cells." Relief flickered across Kaya's features. She quickly donned her torn protective suit, which Wayne had attempted to repair with thermal sealant. It wouldn't withstand external conditions, but for the interior of the tower, it would provide basic protection. They descended through the known levels of the tower, past Wayne's living quarters and research stations, down to the lowest level that had been mapped by the Alliance. There, hidden behind what Wayne had always assumed was a solid wall, Kaya revealed a concealed access panel. She placed her six-fingered hand against it, and to Wayne's astonishment, the ancient technology responded, a seam appearing in the seemingly solid surface. "How?" Wayne asked, gesturing to the opening door and her hand. Kaya wiggled her fingers. "Pattern recognizes pattern." She said the phrase clearly important, though its full meaning eluded him. They stepped through the doorway into a vertical shaft that plunged downward into darkness. A maintenance ladder crafted from the same indestructible material as the tower itself offered the only way down. "Careful," Kaya cautioned, starting her descent. "Long fall." Wayne activated his portable lights and followed her into the abyss. The climb down seemed endless, the ladder occasionally vibrating with the mysterious disturbances below. After what felt like an hour, they reached another doorway set into the shaft wall. Kaya accessed it with the same touch pattern technique, revealing a vast chamber beyond. Wayne's light barely penetrated the darkness, but what it illuminated stole his breath. Rows upon rows of crystalline structures, each pulsing with an internal light that shifted through colors Wayne had no names for. The energy cells weren't merely batteries. They were something far more sophisticated, more alive. Another tremor, stronger than any before, shook the chamber. Several of the crystalline structures darkened, while others began to pulse more rapidly. "Destabilizing," Kaya said, moving quickly toward a central console that rose from the floor like a growth of the same crystal. "Must balance. Help." Wayne joined her at the console, where symbols flowed across a surface that seemed neither solid nor liquid. Kaya placed her hands on the console, and the symbols responded, reorganizing themselves according to her touch. "Here," she said, indicating where Wayne should place his hands. "Pattern needs human pattern too. Balance." Hesitantly, Wayne placed his hands where she indicated. An immediate sensation, not quite pain, but an intense awareness flowed up his arms and into his mind. The symbols swirled faster, responding to his presence. Think balance. Kaya instructed, her voice strained with concentration. Think harmony. Wayne tried to comply, though he had no idea what balancing an alien energy system would entail. He focused on the concept of equilibrium of opposing forces, held in perfect tension. The symbols began to slow their frantic swirling, gradually settling into a more orderly arrangement. The pulsing of the energy cells also stabilized, finding a unified rhythm that reminded Wayne of breathing. Good, Kaya said. Hold pattern. For what seemed like hours, they maintained their positions, making minute adjustments, as Kaya directed. The tremors gradually subsided, and the ominous rumbling faded to a barely perceptible hum. Finally, Kaya removed her hands from the console, and Wayne followed suit. The sensation lingering in his arms slowly faded, leaving behind a tingling awareness that wasn't entirely unpleasant. "What are these?" Wayne asked, gesturing to the crystalline structures. "What energy?" Kaya seemed to search for words within her limited vocabulary. "Life energy," she finally said. "Pattern memory. History of—" She made a sweeping gesture that encompassed everything. "These crystals contain memories?" Wayne asked, struggling to understand. "More," Kaya replied. "Contain essence of those who came before, not dead, sleeping." The implication struck Wayne like a physical blow. These weren't mere energy cells or data storage units. They were consciousness preservation devices, containing the digitized or otherwise preserved minds of Threer 9's original inhabitants. "Why activating now?" he asked. "Why after so long?" Kaya touched her pendant. "Resonance. My pattern. Similar. Called to them." She looked troubled. "Not supposed to happen. Dangerous." Before Wayne could ask for clarification, a new sound filled the chamber, a high-pitched tone that seemed to emanate from the crystals themselves. Kaya's expression shifted from concern to outright fear. "Transmission," she whispered. "They found us." As if in response to her words, a section of the chamber wall shimmered and became transparent, revealing the frozen landscape outside. Through the newly formed window, Wayne could see two figures approaching the tower, humanoid, but clearly not human, their movements too fluid, too precise. They wore environmental suits that made Kaya's look primitive by comparison, and they moved through Threer 9's hostile environment as if it presented no challenge at all. "Reclamation." Kaya said the word heavy with dread. "Come for me, come for—" She touched her pendant again. Wayne made a decision then, one that would likely end his career, if not his freedom. "Hide," he told Kaya, pointing to a recess between two rows of crystals. "I talk to them." Kaya shook her head vehemently. "No, they take tower, take cells, take all." "Trust me," Wayne insisted. "Please." After a moment of hesitation, Kaya retreated to the hiding place he had indicated, though her expression made it clear she thought his plan was doomed. Wayne ascended the maintenance ladder alone, his mind racing. By the time he reached his living quarters, the tower system was already announcing the arrival of visitors at the external door. "Two entities detected at entrance," the system reported. "Biological signatures unknown. Technology signatures advanced. Request access protocol diplomatic." Diplomatic protocol meant they weren't attempting to force entry, at least not yet. It gave Wayne a slim chance to control the encounter. "System grant access to decontamination chamber only," he commanded. "Maintain internal security protocols at maximum." The system acknowledged, and Wayne watched on the monitor as the outer door opened, admitting the two figures. In the better lighting of the decontamination chamber, he could see them more clearly. They resembled Kaya in their basic physiognomy, the same blue skin, the same large eyes, but there were significant differences as well. Their skin bore no visible patterns, and their movements had a mechanical precision that Kaya's lacked. One of the figures looked directly at the camera and spoke. To Wayne's surprise, the words that emerged from the chamber's speaker were in flawless English. Human researcher, the figure, said, its voice lacking the crystalline quality of Kaya's speech. We come under the authority of the Empire of the Eternal Pattern, seeking a fugitive. Our sensors indicate she has taken refuge in this installation. Surrender her immediately, and no harm will come to you or this research outpost. Wayne activated the chamber's communication system. This is Wayne Everett, Earth Archaeological Alliance. I'm not aware of any fugitive. I'm alone here. The figure's expression didn't change. Deception is futile. We detected the activation of the memory cells. Such activation could only occur through resonance with a compatible consciousness pattern. The fugitive is here. These memory cells have been inactive for thousands of years, Wayne countered. Any recent activation could be due to my research activities or environmental factors. The second figure stepped forward. Human researcher, you do not comprehend the situation. The one we seek has violated the most sacred law of our empire. Her pattern has been deemed dissonant and must be reclaimed for the harmony of the whole. This is not a request but a statement of imminent action. Wayne felt a chill that had nothing to do with Threer 9's climate. Reclaimed sounded ominous, especially in light of Kaya's obvious fear. This installation falls under Earth jurisdiction, he said, trying to project an authority he didn't truly possess. Any action against it would constitute an act of aggression against the Earth Alliance. The first figure made a gesture that might have been dismissive. Your jurisdictional claims are irrelevant. The technology beneath this installation predates your species' first use of stone tools. It belongs to the Empire by right of pattern continuity. What exactly does reclamation entail? Wayne asked, stalling for time, while he tried to think of a plan. The dissonant one will be returned to the pattern. The second figure explained with the same emotionless precision. Her individual consciousness will be dispersed, and any memory of her existence will be expunged from the collective record. It is not death, human researcher. It is correction. The implication was clear. They intended to erase Kaya, not just physically, but from memory itself, a complete annihilation of her identity. The pendant she wore, the grief she carried for someone who had already been reclaimed. It all made terrible sense now. And if I refuse to cooperate, Wayne asked. Then you will share her fate, the first figure stated. Your pattern, while alien to ours, can still be dispersed. The memory cells will ensure no trace of either of you remains. They were offering him a simple choice: betray Kaya, and live or protect her, and be erased from existence. Not just killed, erased as if he had never been. Wayne thought of the 17 colonists who had died because of his mistranslation years ago. He had lived with that guilt, that knowledge of lives cut short because of his error. If he betrayed Kaya now, how would he live with himself? And if he didn't, if he and Kaya were both reclaimed, would anyone even remember to feel guilty about their loss? I need time to consider your request, Wayne said, and to consult with my superiors. You have one orbital cycle of this world, the second figure declared. We will remain here monitoring the installation. Any attempt at communication with your alliance or at escape will result in immediate reclamation. Do you understand these terms, human researcher? Wayne understood all too well. They were giving him approximately 29 hours to decide whether to save himself or to die alongside Kaya, forgotten by the universe. I understand, he confirmed. The figures retreated from the decontamination chamber, returning to the frozen wasteland outside. Wayne watched on the monitors as they established positions equidistant from the tower, creating a perimeter that would be impossible to breach without detection. He returned to the subterranean chamber, where Kaya emerged from her hiding place as soon as she saw him. Her expression asked the question before she could find the words. They wait, Wayne explained. One day. Want me give you to them, or we both? He made a gesture of dispersal with his hands. Kaya nodded understanding. What will you do? It was the most complex sentence she had formed in his language, and the direct question caught Wayne off guard. What would he do? The rational choice was clear: save himself, continue his research report, the existence of the Empire to the Alliance. One alien refugee wasn't worth throwing away his life, his redemption. But when he looked at Kaya, really looked at her, he saw not just an alien being, but a person who had risked everything to preserve her identity, her very existence as an individual. Could he condemn her to a fate that was worse than death? "Help you," he said finally, "but need plan." Relief and something else, hope, perhaps, shone in Kaya's large eyes. She approached the central console again, placing her hands on its surface. The symbols responded, flowing into new configurations. "Memory cells," she said. "Not just memory. Communication. Across—" She struggled to find the word, eventually pointing to the pendant at her throat, then making a gesture that encompassed the vast distance between stars. "Space," Wayne suggested. "The cells communicate across space." Kaya nodded vigorously. "Yes. Send pattern far. Send—" She touched her head, then her chest. "Send self." Wayne began to understand. The memory cells weren't just storage devices. They were transmitters capable of sending information, perhaps even consciousness, across interstellar distances. It was a technology far beyond anything the Earth Alliance had developed. "Send us away," he asked. "Escape." Kaya shook her head. "Not ready. Need—" She made an adjustment to the symbols, and a new schematic appeared, showing energy flows that were currently incomplete. "Need more power. Need time." Wayne considered their options. The reclamation envoys had given them one orbital cycle, enough time for Kaya to prepare the memory cells for transmission perhaps, but they would be monitoring for any attempt at escape. Unless— "Record," Wayne said, suddenly pointing to his research equipment upstairs. "I record everything. Have proof of Empire, of reclamation, of cells." He mimed releasing information. "Tell everyone if they harm us." It was a desperate gamble. The envoys had threatened to erase not just their lives, but any memory of their existence. But what if Wayne had already distributed evidence of the Empire and its practices to multiple locations? What if erasing him and Kaya would no longer be enough to keep their secret? Kaya considered his suggestion, her alien features difficult to read. "Dangerous," she finally said. "For you. For Earth. Empire very powerful." "So is information," Wayne replied. "Truth is weapon." For the first time since her arrival, something like a smile curved Kaya's lips. "Yes, truth is weapon," she gestured to the console. "Work on cells. You work on weapon." They separated each, focusing on their task. Wayne ascended to his living quarters and began compiling everything he had learned about Kaya, the Empire, and the memory cells. He recorded video testimony, backed up his research logs, and prepared data packets that could be transmitted to multiple Earth Alliance outposts if he didn't enter a cancellation code every 12 hours. It wasn't a perfect insurance policy, but it might give the envoys pause if they knew that reclaiming Wayne and Kaya wouldn't erase the evidence of their existence or the Empire's methods. As Wayne worked, he realized something that should have been obvious from the start: the tower's communication system, which he had been using to send reports to the Earth Alliance, must be utilizing the same technology as the memory cells. The range and clarity of transmission had always seemed too good to be attributed to conventional quantum entanglement relays. This gave him an idea. If he could modify the communication system to broadcast on a wider spectrum, it might serve as both a distress signal and a warning to any other civilizations in the region about the Empire's reclamation protocol. Hours passed as Wayne worked feverishly, modifying equipment and programming new transmission protocols. Occasionally, the tower would tremble as Kaya made adjustments to the memory cells below each vibration, a reminder of the ancient power they were attempting to harness. With 6 hours remaining before the envoy's deadline, Wayne returned to the subterranean chamber. He found Kaya, seated before the central console, her blue skin glistening with what appeared to be sweat, evidence of her exhaustion. "Progress?" he asked. "Cells ready," she replied, her voice strained. "For transmission. For defense." Wayne showed her the modifications he had made to his communication equipment. "Broadcast truth," he explained. To Earth, to others. Kaya examined his work with obvious interest. Good pattern, she said approvingly, but need connection to cells. She guided him to a specific point in the chamber, where a crystalline growth protruded from the floor. Placing her hand on it, she caused it to transform opening like a flower, to reveal an interface that was compatible with Wayne's equipment. Connect here, she instructed. Cells amplify signal. Reach far. Wayne made the connection, and immediately his equipment hummed with newfound power. The transmission range indicator, which had previously shown a maximum reach of 10 light-years, now displayed values that couldn't be correct, thousands of light-years enough to reach Earth and countless other systems. Will this work? He asked Kaya. Will they listen? Truth has power, Kaya replied, echoing his earlier sentiment. But Empire has power too. She touched her pendant, her expression growing distant. Last chance. You can still give me to them. Save yourself. Wayne shook his head firmly. No, fight together. Something shifted in Kaya's large eyes, a realization perhaps, or a decision. She removed the pendant from around her neck and held it out to Wayne. For you, she said, keep safe. Wayne hesitated. The pendant clearly held immense significance for Kaya. Why give to me? Connection, she explained, pressing it into his palm. If pattern lost, pendant remembers, keeps essence. He understood then. She was giving him a piece of herself, an insurance policy, in case they failed, and she was reclaimed. The pendant would preserve some element of her identity, her pattern, even if the rest was dispersed. I'll keep it safe, Wayne promised, closing his hand around the intricate object. But we will succeed. Both live. Kaya's expression suggested she wasn't convinced, but she nodded anyway. Together, they made final preparations for their confrontation with the envoys. Wayne's modified equipment was set to broadcast their evidence across the galaxy at the first sign of aggression, while Kaya calibrated the memory cells to create what she described as a pattern shield around the tower. As the deadline approached, they ascended to Wayne's living quarters. Through the reinforced windows, they could see the two envoys advancing toward the tower, their movements perfectly synchronized, unnaturally precise. They come, Kaya said, unnecessarily tension evident in her voice. Ready, Wayne asked, his hand hovering over the transmission control. Kaya nodded, once resolute. Ready. The tower system announced the envoy's arrival at the external door. This time, they didn't request diplomatic protocol, they simply overrode the security measures, forcing the outer door open. Wayne activated the communication system. This is Wayne Everett, he declared. I've prepared evidence of your presence and your reclamation protocol for distribution to thousands of systems. Any action against myself or my guest will trigger immediate transmission. The envoys paused in the decontamination chamber, their expressionless faces turning toward the camera. Human researcher, the first envoy, said, You do not comprehend the consequences of your defiance. The pattern must be preserved. Dissonance must be reclaimed. I understand perfectly, Wayne replied. You want to erase Kaya, not just kill her, but remove any trace that she ever existed. That's not preservation. It's obliteration, and I won't allow it. The second envoy stepped forward. The dissonant one has corrupted your understanding. Her pattern threatens the harmony of millions. One life against millions, the calculation is simple. If her pattern truly threatened millions, you wouldn't be here alone, Wayne countered. You'd have brought an army. This isn't about protection, it's about control. The envoys exchanged a glance that, despite their alien features, Wayne recognized as uncertainty. His gambit had introduced doubt. Last warning, the first envoy declared. Surrender the dissonant one, or face reclamation. Wayne pressed the transmission button, initiating the broadcast of their evidence to the modified communication system. I've just activated the transmission, he informed them. It's too late to stop it. Even if you reclaim us, thousands of systems now know about your methods. The envoys froze, their postures suddenly rigid. For several long moments they remained motionless, as if communing with some unseen presence. Then, with eerie synchronization, they spoke in unison. Verification complete. Transmission detected. Breach of pattern security confirmed. Wayne felt Kaya tense beside him. This was the moment of truth. Would the envoys retreat, or would they proceed with reclamation regardless of the consequences? Emergency protocol initiated, the envoys announced, still in perfect unison. Quarantine sequence activated. Before Wayne could react, the envoys turned and exited the decontamination chamber, returning to the frozen wasteland outside. On the monitors, he watched as they retreated to their original positions, equidistant from the tower. "What happened?" he asked Kaya. "What's quarantine sequence?" Kaya's expression was a mixture of relief and new concern. "They cannot reclaim us without revealing themselves to others, so they contain us instead. Keep us here, forever." The implication was clear. They might have avoided immediate reclamation, but they were now prisoners in the tower. The envoys would ensure no one could enter or leave, establishing a permanent quarantine around the site. It wasn't victory, but it was survival, at least for now. "Not forever," Wayne said firmly. "We have cells. We have communication. We find way." Kaya studied him with those large, expressive eyes. "Why fight for me, risk everything?" It was a question Wayne had been asking himself since he first opened the door to her. Why risk his life, his redemption, for an alien refugee he barely knew? The answer came to him with surprising clarity. 7 years ago, he began searching for words Kaya would understand. "I made mistake. Translation error. 17 people died. I came here to fix myself, to be better." He gestured to the tower around them. "But I was not living, just existing, punishing self." He touched the pendant Kaya had given him. "You showed me something important. Life is not just existing. Life is connecting, making patterns with others." He met her gaze directly. "I fight for you because that makes me alive again." Kaya stepped closer to him, her movement hesitant, but purposeful. With gentle precision, she placed her 6-fingered hand against his chest. "Your pattern," she said softly. "It resonates with mine. Different, but harmonious." In that moment, something shifted between them, a recognition that transcended their biological differences, their cultural barriers, their limited shared language. They were two beings who had found each other across the vast emptiness of space, each broken in their own way, each seeking something they had lost. "So we're trapped here," Wayne said, covering her hand with his own. "What now?" Kaya's lips curved in that almost smile. "Now we live. Now we make new pattern, together." The days that followed established a new routine in the tower. Wayne continued his archaeological work now, with Kaya's assistance. Her insights into the ancient language of Threr 9 proved invaluable, accelerating his translations and helping him correct previous errors. Kaya, in turn, learned more of Wayne's language and culture through the educational materials stored in the tower's database. Her rapid progress confirmed Wayne's initial impression of her extraordinary intelligence. The envoys maintained their vigil outside, unmoved by Threr 9's brutal storms or the passage of time. Occasionally, they would approach the tower to verify that the quarantine remained intact, but they made no further attempts to enter or to reclaim either Wayne or Kaya. Wayne's regular reports to the Earth Alliance became increasingly vague as he struggled with how much to reveal about his situation. He mentioned discovering new sublevels in the tower and making progress with translations, but said nothing about Kaya or the envoys. The Alliance, preoccupied with discoveries on other worlds, seemed content with his abbreviated updates. In the evenings, Wayne and Kaya would descend to the Chamber of Memory Cells, working together to understand and harness their ancient power. The cells responded to Kaya's touch, revealing secrets that had been lost for millennia. Through careful experimentation, they discovered that the cells could indeed transmit consciousness across vast distances, a technology that could revolutionize interstellar travel if it could be properly controlled. But more immediate than scientific discovery was the growing connection between them. Despite their different biologies, different worlds of origin, different expectations of life, they found points of resonance that Kaya described as pattern harmony. One evening, as they sat in Wayne's living quarters, sharing a meal, Kaya asked a question that had clearly been on her mind for some time. "What will happen?" She began her command of his language, now nearly fluent. "When your mission ends, when your people call you home." Wayne had been avoiding this question himself. His 2-year assignment on Thrir 9 would conclude in less than 8 months. Under normal circumstances, he would be replaced by another archaeologist, or the site would be abandoned if deemed unprofitable. "I don't know," he admitted. "The envoys won't let us leave. The Alliance won't leave me here indefinitely." "Will you tell them about me?" Kaya asked. "About the Empire?" Wayne considered the question carefully. "If I tell them everything, they might try to contact the Empire. Negotiate. But negotiation requires trust, and the Empire has shown it can't be trusted. Or they might see me as a research subject," Kaya added, her tone matter of fact. "Your people are curious. Sometimes curiosity leads to dissection." The word sent a chill through Wayne. He had never considered that possibility, but it was true. There were factions within the Alliance who would view Kaya as a specimen to be studied rather than a person to be protected. "I won't let that happen," he promised. "But we need a plan, a way to ensure safety for both of us." Kaya's expression turned thoughtful. "Perhaps not safety," she suggested. "Perhaps something better." "What's better than safety?" Wayne asked. "Freedom," Kaya replied simply. "The chance to make our own pattern." Over the next weeks, they developed a plan that was audacious in its simplicity. Using the memory cells and Wayne's modified communication equipment, they would establish what Kaya called a living archive, a database that would contain not just information about the Empire and its reclamation protocol, but also personal testimonies from both Wayne and Kaya about their experiences. This archive would be transmitted to dozens of systems, including Earth, with instructions for it to be activated only if Wayne and Kaya failed to send regular updates. It would serve as both insurance against the Empire's attempts to erase them and as a legacy if they couldn't escape their quarantine. "It's not just about survival," Kaya explained as they worked on the archive. "It's about bearing witness, ensuring that our patterns, our stories endure, even if we don't." Wayne understood. In a universe where entire identities could be erased, where the powerful could decree that certain lives had never existed, the act of recording one's story became an act of defiance. The Empire might control space, might command technology beyond human comprehension, but it couldn't silence the truth if enough people knew it. As they compiled their testimonies, Wayne found himself sharing things he had never told anyone, not just the facts of the Proxima Centauri disaster, but the weight of guilt he had carried, the way he had withdrawn from human connection as self-punishment. Kaya, in turn, revealed the full story of her flight from the Empire. She had been born with a rare genetic variation, the intricate patterns on her skin, that marked her as part of a diminishing subpopulation within the Empire. These pattern bearers, as they were called, had once been revered as living connections to the Empire's ancestral past. But as the Empire expanded and its governance grew more centralized, diversity of any kind came to be seen as a threat to harmony. The reclamation protocol had begun as a method of dealing with criminal elements, but had evolved into a tool for enforcing conformity. Kaya's twin, who had borne the same genetic patterns, had been the first of their community to be reclaimed after speaking out against the Empire's policies. Kaya had fled, rather than face the same fate, carrying her twin's essence in the pendant that now hung around Wayne's neck. "In our culture," she explained, "twins share more than blood. We share pattern consciousness, soul essence. When my twin was reclaimed, part of their pattern transferred to me. It's why the envoys hunt me so relentlessly. I don't just carry my own dissonance. I carry my twins as well." The revelation gave new meaning to the pendant, and to Kaya's initial offering when she had first arrived. She had expected Wayne to claim her life as the Empire had claimed her twins. His refusal had been incomprehensible within her cultural framework, an act of mercy, where none was expected. As their work on the living archive progressed, the relationship between Wayne and Kaya deepened beyond friendship or alliance. Their shared purpose, their mutual protection, their growing understanding of each other's patterns, all of it crystallized into something neither of them had expected to find on this frozen world love. It wasn't a love that either of them had words for in their respective languages. It transcended the physical, though there was a physical component that they discovered with cautious exploration. It was a recognition of pattern harmony, as Kaya described it, a sense that the universe had drawn them together, across impossible distances, for a purpose neither could fully articulate. 6 months into their shared quarantine, as Threer 9's long winter gave way to a brief spring that raised the temperature to merely freezing, Wayne faced a decision. His mission was scheduled to end in 8 weeks. The Alliance would expect him to prepare for extraction. He could no longer delay addressing the reality of their situation. "I'm staying," he told Kaya, as they watched the first green shoots appear in the experimental garden they had established in one of the tower's unused chambers. "When the Alliance contacts me, I'll tell them I need more time to complete my research." Kaya touched one of the delicate plants with gentle fingers. "They will ask questions, demand explanations." "Let them," Wayne replied. "I've found something here worth protecting. Something more important than ancient artifacts or dead languages." Kaya looked up at him, her large eyes reflecting the garden's growth lights. "Us," she said. "Our pattern." "Yes," Wayne confirmed. "Our pattern." 2 days later, the tower's system announced an incoming transmission from the Earth Alliance. Wayne accepted the communication, his heart pounding with anticipation and dread. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Dr. Elizabeth Chen, his supervisor, and the architect of the Threer 9 mission. Her expression was grave. "Wayne," she began without preamble, "we've detected unusual transmission activities from your location. Powerful signals directed to multiple systems, using bandwidth far beyond your equipment's specifications. Explain immediately." Wayne had anticipated this discovery eventually, though not so soon. He chose his words carefully, aware that this conversation might determine his and Kaya's future. "I've made significant discoveries," he replied. "The tower contains technology far more advanced than our initial assessment indicated. I've been conducting experiments with the communication systems." Dr. Chen's eyes narrowed. "Our analysts say these transmissions contain substantial data packets, far more than your research updates account for. What exactly are you sending and to whom?" The moment of truth had arrived sooner than Wayne had expected. He could continue the deception, which would eventually fail, or he could take a leap of faith. "I'm not alone here, Elizabeth," he said finally. "There's someone else in the tower with me, someone who needs protection." Dr. Chen's surprise was evident. "Explain yourself, Wayne, now." Wayne glanced off camera to where Kaya stood, just out of the transmission field. She nodded once, giving her consent. 6 months ago, Wayne began. "A refugee arrived at the tower seeking shelter. She's from a civilization we haven't encountered before, an interstellar empire, based in the Lysithea system. She's being hunted by representatives of that empire who want to erase her. Not just kill her, but remove any evidence she ever existed." "This is a first contact situation," Dr. Chen said slowly, her scientific mind already calculating the implications. "Why didn't you report it immediately?" "Because I made a choice to protect her," Wayne replied. "And because the Empire's representatives have established a quarantine around the tower. They're monitoring all communications." Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "You've potentially endangered Earth-alien relations and violated at least 7 protocols. I need to see this refugee." Wayne looked to Kaya again, who stepped forward into the transmission field. Dr. Chen's eyes widened at the sight of the blue-skinned alien with her intricate pattern markings. "This is Kaya," Wayne said simply. "She saved my life. She's been helping me understand the tower's technology, and she's under my protection." For a long moment, Dr. Chen was silent, studying Kaya with the intense focus of a career scientist confronted with an unprecedented discovery. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured. The Alliance will need to dispatch a diplomatic team to evaluate this situation. Your unauthorized actions have created a potential interspecies incident. However, she added, her tone softening slightly, I understand why you might have made this choice given the circumstances you've described. The quarantine prevents anyone from entering or leaving, Wayne pointed out. The Empire's representatives won't allow a diplomatic team to approach. Then we'll need to negotiate with these representatives, Dr. Chen replied. Open a dialogue. Kaya stepped closer to the screen. The Empire does not negotiate, she said in fluent English, surprising Dr. Chen. They reclaim. They erase. They enforce pattern conformity. Dialogue is seen as weakness. Dr. Chen studied Kaya with new interest. You speak our language well. Wayne has been teaching me, Kaya explained. As I have been teaching him about the memory cells and the technology of this tower. Memory cells. Dr. Chen repeated, her scientific curiosity, evidently piqued. The true purpose of this installation, Wayne interjected. It's not just a data storage facility. It's a repository of consciousness, a way to preserve identity across vast distances and time periods. It's technology far beyond our current understanding. Dr. Chen's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious interest. If what you're saying is true, this discovery changes everything. But the Alliance won't sanction an indefinite standoff with an advanced alien civilization. We need a resolution, Wayne. We've been working on one, Wayne assured her. The living archive we've been transmitting contains everything we've learned about the Empire, about the memory cells, about ourselves. It's insurance against erasure, but it's also a foundation for understanding. I'll need to consult with the Alliance Council, Dr. Chen said after a moment's consideration. In the meantime, continue your research but make no provocative moves. If these Empire representatives are monitoring us, I don't want to escalate the situation unnecessarily. As the transmission ended, Wayne felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The Alliance now knew about Kaya and the quarantine. What they would decide to do with that knowledge remained to be seen. They will come, Kaya said, not as a question but as a statement of fact. Your people. They will try to claim the memory cells, or study me. Not if I can prevent it, Wayne replied. Over the next several days, they monitored increased communication activity between Earth and various Alliance outposts. The content of these communications was encrypted, but the pattern was clear. The Alliance was mobilizing in response to Wayne's revelation. Meanwhile, the envoys outside maintained their silent vigil, seemingly unperturbed by the Alliance's discovery of their presence. They must have known that Wayne would eventually reveal the truth to his superiors. Perhaps they had calculated that the Alliance posed no significant threat to their quarantine. Wayne and Kaya continued their work on the living archive now, with a renewed sense of urgency. If the Alliance decided to intervene forcefully, it could provoke the Empire into more direct action. The archive might be their only legacy if matters escalated beyond their control. 1 week after Wayne's conversation with Dr. Chen, the envoys approached the tower for the first time in months. They stood before the external door, their expressionless faces turned toward the camera. Human researcher, the first envoy, addressed Wayne through the communication system. Your Alliance prepares intervention. This violates quarantine terms. My superiors needed to know the truth, Wayne replied, just as we've shared the truth with thousands of other systems through our archive. The archive is noted, the second envoy acknowledged. Its existence has been reported to the Pattern Preservation Council. A decision is pending. This was new information. The envoys had never before mentioned reporting to any higher authority. Perhaps the widespread distribution of the living archive had forced the Empire to reconsider its approach. What decision? Wayne asked. Regarding exemption, the first envoy stated. The Dissonant One's pattern, while fundamentally flawed, has demonstrated unexpected adaptability. Her harmony with a non-Empire consciousness, yours, represents a data point of potential value. Wayne exchanged a glance with Kaya, whose expression reflected his own surprise. Were the envoys suggesting that the Empire might revoke its reclamation order? Exemption would require conditions, the second envoy continued. Containment within this installation, continued pattern monitoring, regular reporting to the Council. Permanent exile, Kaya translated, her voice low. But with acknowledged existence, with identity preserved. It wasn't freedom, but it was a significant concession from an empire that had previously demanded Kaya's complete erasure. The question was, why? What had changed in the Empire's calculation? Your living archive, the first envoy said, as if reading Wayne's thoughts. It has created awareness. Awareness creates complexity in the pattern. In other words, Wayne realized their insurance policy had worked. By spreading knowledge of the Empire and its reclamation protocol to thousands of systems, they had made it impossible for the Empire to simply erase Kaya without raising questions. The Empire, it seemed, valued its secrecy and its reputation more than it valued absolute conformity. We need time to consider your offer, Wayne replied, though his heart was racing with the possibility of a resolution that would keep Kaya safe. And to consult with my alliance. Time is granted, the second envoy declared. 1 orbital cycle. The Council awaits your response. As the envoys retreated to their monitoring positions, Wayne turned to Kaya. This could be the solution we've been seeking. Not perfect, but... Not freedom. Kaya interrupted, her expression troubled. Supervised existence. Monitored pattern. But life, Wayne countered. Identity preserved, and together. Kaya touched the pendant that hung around Wayne's neck, the one that contained some essence of her twin. My twin died for the right to define their own pattern, to live without the Empire's constraints. Can I accept less? It was a profound question, one that Wayne couldn't answer for her. Instead, he asked, what alternatives do we have? The Alliance won't fight an interstellar war for us. The Empire won't simply go away. There is another option, Kaya said after a moment of silence. The memory cells. Wayne understood immediately. Transmission, sending our consciousness elsewhere. Kaya nodded. Not just data, not just information. Real translation of pattern of self. The implications were staggering. The memory cells might be capable of transmitting not just information, but consciousness itself, allowing them to effectively teleport across interstellar distances. It was a technology that would revolutionize space travel, if it could be harnessed, but it was also incredibly dangerous. If something went wrong, their patterns could be dispersed across space, their identities fragmented beyond recovery. Where would we go? Wayne asked. The cells would need a receiver, another installation like this one. There are others, Kaya confirmed. The Empire built on foundations laid by the original inhabitants of this world. Their network extends across many systems. Can you locate one that's not under Empire control? Kaya's expression grew distant, as if accessing some inner knowledge. Perhaps. The original network was more extensive than the Empire knows. Some nodes may remain undiscovered. It was a risk, an enormous one. But it offered something the Empire's exemption did not, the possibility of true freedom, of defining their own pattern without constraints. How long would it take to prepare? Wayne asked. Days, perhaps, Kaya replied. The cells are ready. The problem is targeting, finding a receiver that still functions after thousands of years. Wayne made a decision then. We'll pursue both options. Prepare for transmission while negotiating with the Empire and the Alliance. Keep all possibilities open until the last moment. Kaya agreed, and they set to work with renewed purpose. While Wayne maintained communications with Dr. Chen, explaining the Empire's offer and discussing the Alliance's response, Kaya descended to the chamber of memory cells, searching for a viable destination for their potential transmission. The days passed with feverish activity as they prepared for multiple contingencies. The Alliance, through Dr. Chen, expressed cautious interest in the Empire's exemption offer, seeing it as a way to establish diplomatic relations without risking confrontation. Wayne was careful to share only selected information about the memory cell's capabilities, aware that the Alliance would prioritize acquiring the technology over their personal safety. Meanwhile, Kaya made progress in her search for a transmission target. She identified several possible locations where ancient receivers might still function, the most promising being a small, uninhabited moon in a system just beyond the Empire's current sphere of influence. On the eve of the envoy's deadline, Wayne and Kaya made their final preparations. The living archive had been completed and transmitted to thousands of locations, ensuring that whatever happened, their story would survive. The memory cells were primed for potential transmission, requiring only final targeting coordinates and activation. They spent their last night in Wayne's living quarters, watching Threr 9's 3 moons through the glass ceiling dome. The storm season had passed, leaving the sky clear and filled with stars, countless possible destinations, countless potential futures. "Are you afraid?" Wayne asked, his arm around Kaya's shoulders. "Yes," she admitted, "but fear is part of the pattern. Without it, how would we recognize courage?" Wayne smiled at that. In the months they had spent together, Kaya's perspective on existence, her understanding of the universe as interconnected patterns, had fundamentally altered his own worldview. What had once seemed cold and analytical now revealed itself as profoundly spiritual, a recognition of the harmony that underlies apparent chaos. "Whatever happens tomorrow," he said, "I want you to know that meeting you changed everything for me. Before you arrived, I was just existing, punishing myself for past mistakes, hiding from real connection. You showed me what it means to truly live." Kaya turned to face him, her large eyes reflecting the moonlight. "And you showed me that pattern is not destiny. That dissonance can become harmony when joined with another complementary pattern." She placed her 6-fingered hand against his chest. "Our patterns may differ, but they resonate together. That is rare across any species, any world." They held each other as the moons crossed the sky, speaking softly of memories they had created and futures they might yet experience. In those quiet hours, the Empire and the Alliance seemed distant concerns compared to the immediate reality of their connection. Morning arrived with harsh clarity. The envoys approached the tower as the first sun crested the horizon, standing before the external door with their usual emotionless precision. "The deadline arrives," the first envoy announced through the communication system. "What is your response to the Council's offer?" Wayne and Kaya had discussed their approach carefully. They needed to keep both options viable until the last possible moment. "We are inclined to accept the exemption," Wayne replied, choosing his words with care. "But we require clarification on certain points. Will the Alliance be permitted to maintain contact? Will supplies and equipment be allowed through the quarantine?" "Limited contact will be permitted," the second envoy stated. "Essential supplies will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The primary requirement is that the dissonant one remain contained within this installation in perpetuity." "And what guarantees do we have that the Empire won't simply change its mind and reclaim us both once the living archive is no longer of concern?" Wayne pressed. The envoys exchanged one of their inscrutable glances. "Pattern Preservation Council decisions are binding," the first envoy declared. "The exemption, once granted, would become part of the eternal pattern itself." Wayne nodded, as if considering this assurance. "We need a few hours to finalize our decision and to inform my Alliance of our choice." "Hours are granted," the second envoy conceded. "We will return at midday for your final response." As the envoys retreated, Wayne turned to Kaya. "Well, which path do we choose?" Kaya's expression was resolute. "I have found a receiver, a memory cell installation on the moon I identified. It still functions barely, but enough for our purpose." "And the risks?" Wayne asked. "Significant," Kaya admitted. "Pattern dispersal is possible, or incomplete transmission arriving with portions of consciousness missing. In other words, we might die or we might arrive as something less than ourselves." Kaya nodded gravely. "Yes, but we would be free." Wayne considered the alternatives. Accept the Empire's offer, and they would live out their lives in this tower together, but always watched, always constrained. Attempt transmission, and they might lose everything, including each other. But they might also gain a new beginning, free from both the Empire's control and the Alliance's ambitions. The memory cells, he decided. Freedom is worth the risk. Relief and apprehension mingled in Kaya's expression. Then we must hurry. The cells require significant preparation for a dual transmission. They descended to the subterranean chamber, where the crystalline structures pulsed with ancient energy. Kaya moved among them with practiced ease, adjusting configurations and establishing the target coordinates. Wayne assisted where he could, though much of the technology remained beyond his understanding, despite months of study. As they worked, the tower system announced an incoming transmission from the Earth Alliance. Wayne hesitated, then accepted the communication. Dr. Chen's face appeared on the small portable screen they had brought to the chamber. Wayne. She began without preamble. The Council has reached a decision. We're going to support the exemption offer. It establishes a precedent for diplomatic relations with this empire, while ensuring your safety and continuing access to the technological discoveries you've made. Wayne glanced at Kaya, who continued her preparations without pausing. That's good to hear, he replied carefully. Dr. Chen's expression grew stern. But we need to be clear about expectations. The Alliance will want full documentation of everything you've learned about these memory cells. We'll establish a research team that can work remotely with you, since direct access will be limited by the quarantine. Of course they would. The Alliance would never pass up an opportunity to study technology as advanced as the memory cells, even if it meant treating Wayne and Kaya as perpetual research subjects. I understand, Wayne said, keeping his tone neutral. We'll provide all the information we can. Good, Dr. Chen nodded. We've already begun preparations for your extended stay. Supply deliveries will be negotiated with these envoys, and will establish regular communication protocols that respect the quarantine restrictions. The Alliance was moving quickly to solidify the arrangement, to transform what had been a crisis into a controlled research opportunity. It was logical, pragmatic, and completely at odds with the choice Wayne and Kaya had just made. Thank you, Elizabeth, Wayne said. We'll be in touch soon with our decision. A flicker of suspicion crossed Dr. Chen's face. Decision? I thought we just established that the exemption offer is the optimal solution. We're still finalizing details with the envoys, Wayne equivocated. I'll update you after our next conversation with them. Dr. Chen clearly wasn't satisfied with this response, but she limited herself to a cautionary reminder. Don't do anything rash, Wayne. The diplomatic implications extend far beyond your personal situation. As the transmission ended, Kaya looked up from her work. Your Alliance expects compliance, she observed. They always do, Wayne replied. But they don't get to decide our future. They returned to their preparations with renewed urgency. The memory cells hummed with increasing power as Kaya established the transmission parameters. The pendant that Wayne wore, the one containing some essence of Kaya's twin, began to glow with the same shifting colors as the cells themselves, resonating with the ancient technology. Almost ready, Kaya announced as midday approached. The targeting is complete. The receiver is responding. We need only to initiate the transmission sequence. Wayne checked the external monitors. The envoys were already approaching the tower, arriving precisely at the deadline they had established. There was no more time for hesitation. Do it, he told Kaya. Initiate transmission. Kaya placed her hands on the central console, the symbols flowing in response to her touch. The chamber filled with a harmonic resonance that Wayne felt in his bones, a vibration that seemed to penetrate to the core of his being. The pendant at his throat grew warmer, its glow intensifying. The memory cells around them pulsed in synchronization, their light coalescing into patterns that mirrored the designs on Kaya's skin. Wayne Everett, the tower's system, announced incoming communication from Earth Alliance Command. Ignore, Wayne commanded, not taking his eyes from Kaya as she guided the transmission sequence. Wayne Everett. The system tried again. The envoys request immediate response to their offer. Ignore, Wayne repeated. The harmonic resonance deepened, becoming almost painful in its intensity. The pendant at Wayne's throat now burned against his skin, its light so bright that it cast his shadow against the far wall of the chamber. Final stage, Kaya said, her voice strained with concentration. Pattern analysis complete. Transmission commencing in 10 seconds. Wayne moved to her side, placing his hand over hers on the console. The symbols responded to their combined touch, flowing into new configurations that neither of them had seen before. Together, he said as the resonance reached its peak. Kaya's large eyes met his, filled with the same mixture of fear and hope that he felt. Together, she agreed. The chamber filled with light, the memory cells releasing their stored energy in a cascading wave that engulfed them both. Wayne felt a sensation unlike anything he had experienced before a separation, as if his consciousness were being gently lifted from his physical form. There was no pain, only a profound awareness of every aspect of his being, every memory, every thought, every emotion he had ever experienced laid bare before him. He was vaguely aware of Kaya beside him, her form now more light than substance, the patterns on her skin glowing with the same intensity as the memory cells themselves. Their hands remained joined on the console as their physical bodies began to dissolve into the light. In that moment of transition, Wayne understood what Kaya had meant by pattern. It wasn't just a physical design or a cultural concept. It was the essential structure of consciousness itself, the unique configuration that made each being who they were. And he could see his own pattern now intertwining with Kaya's in a dance of light and information. The last thing Wayne heard before his awareness of the chamber faded completely was the tower system announcing the arrival of the envoys at the external door. They were too late. The transmission had begun, and nothing could stop it now. There was a moment of absolute stillness, a suspension between existence and non-existence that might have lasted an instant or an eternity, and then abruptly sensation returned. Cold air filled Wayne's lungs as he gasped, his body reassembling itself in a new location. The light that had consumed him receded, leaving him disoriented, but intact. He was lying on a hard surface, the chill seeping through his clothing. Above him, unfamiliar stars shone in an alien sky. Kaya, he called, his voice hoarse as he struggled to sit up. For a terrifying moment, there was no response. Then a soft glow coalesced beside him, gradually taking on Kaya's familiar form. Her materialization seemed slower, more difficult than his had been. But finally, she stood before him, the patterns on her skin pulsing weakly with residual energy. "We made it," she whispered, her voice as unsteady as his own. The transmission succeeded. Wayne looked around, taking in their surroundings for the first time. They were in a chamber similar to the one they had left behind on Threer 9, but smaller, and in a state of advanced decay. Ancient memory cells lined the walls, most of them dark and lifeless. Only a few still glowed with faint internal light, their energy nearly depleted by the effort of receiving their transmission. Above them, a cracked dome revealed a sky filled with stars and dominated by a massive ringed planet, their new home's primary. The moon that Kaya had targeted was clearly a satellite of a gas giant, far from any inhabited worlds. "Where exactly are we?" Wayne asked, as he got to his feet, reaching out to steady Kaya as she swayed slightly. "A forgotten outpost," she replied, regaining her balance. "Established before the Empire abandoned during the Pattern Schism thousands of years ago. Beyond Imperial space, beyond Alliance reach. And beyond anyone's help if something goes wrong," Wayne added, surveying the decaying installation. The technology was similar to that of the tower on Threer 9, but the years of neglect were evident in every cracked surface and malfunctioning system. "Yes," Kaya acknowledged. "We are truly alone here, free to create our own pattern." Wayne touched the pendant at his throat, surprised to find it still with him after the transmission. It no longer glowed, but retained a warmth that seemed out of place in the cold chamber. "Did everyone make it?" he asked, his meaning clear. Kaya understood the question. She placed her hand over his on the pendant. "Yes," she confirmed. "All patterns transmitted intact. My twin's essence, your consciousness, my being all here, all complete." Relief washed over Wayne. The risk they had taken had been immense, but the reward was equally profound. True freedom, an escape from both the Empire's control and the Alliance's ambitions. "So what now?" he asked, gesturing to the abandoned installation around them. "How do we start our new life in this rather fixer-upper of a home?" Kaya's lips curved in that almost smile he had come to cherish. "We begin as all patterns begin," she said, "with small connections building toward greater complexity." She pointed to the few functioning memory cells. "These still hold knowledge, technical information, historical records, enough to help us restore basic systems." Wayne nodded, his archaeologist's training already assessing the installation's condition. It would be challenging, certainly, but not impossible. The original builders had created their technology to last millennia, even without maintenance. With careful restoration, the essential systems could be brought back online. "And then," he prompted, "once we have a functioning shelter, then we explore." Kaya replied, her large eyes reflecting the starlight from above. "This moon, this system. We document what we find, create our own archive, not just to preserve the past, but to shape the future." "A living archive," Wayne said, recalling the name they had given to their insurance policy against the Empire. "But this time it's for us. Our record, our testimony." "Yes," Kaya agreed. "Our pattern freely chosen, freely shared." They stood together beneath the alien sky, their hands still joined, their futures unknown, but undeniably their own. The transmission had changed them perhaps in ways they had yet to discover, but they remained essentially themselves, patterns preserved across the void between stars. The first days on the moon were the hardest. With minimal functioning technology and limited resources, Wayne and Kaya focused on securing the basic necessities: a stable environment, sustainable food synthesis, reliable power generation. They worked tirelessly, drawing on both Wayne's practical training and Kaya's intuitive understanding of the ancient systems. The few active memory cells proved invaluable, containing technical schematics and operational codes that allowed them to reactivate dormant systems throughout the installation. With each small success, a lighting panel illuminating for the first time in millennia, a food synthesizer producing its first nutrient-dense meal, their confidence grew. By the end of the first month, they had established a livable space within the installation's central hub. It wasn't comfortable by any conventional standard, but it was safe, sustainable, and most importantly, theirs. As their immediate survival concerns eased, Wayne began documenting their new environment with the same methodical precision he had applied to his archaeological work on Threer 9. The moon, which they named Havon, a word in Kaya's language that approximated second chance, was small, but geologically complex. Its surface featured impact craters, mountain ranges, and vast plains of a crystalline substance that glittered in the light of the gas giant overhead. Initial explorations revealed that the installation was not the only structure on Havon. Other ruins dotted the surface, remnants of a more extensive settlement that had once thrived here. Each discovery added to their understanding of the pre-Empire civilization that had built the memory cells and established the interstellar network they had utilized for their escape. Kaya, meanwhile, focused on deeper restoration of the memory cells, gradually bringing more of them back online and accessing the vast stores of information they contained. Each activated cell revealed new layers of history, technology, and cultural knowledge, a treasure trove that would take lifetimes to fully explore. In the quiet moments between their work, they would often sit beneath the stars, watching the majestic rings of the gas giant as they caught the light of the distant sun. In those moments, they would talk about the paths that had brought them together, and the future. They were building a future neither of them could have imagined before their meeting on that frozen world. "Do you think they're still looking for us?" Wayne asked one evening, 6 months after their arrival. "The Empire, the Alliance?" Kaya considered the question, her gaze on the stars above. "The Empire surely concluded that we died in a failed transmission attempt. Their reclamation envoys would have found the tower empty, the memory cells depleted. They would consider the matter closed, a dissonant pattern, successfully eliminated." "And the Alliance?" "Your people are more persistent," Kaya acknowledged. "They may still search out of scientific curiosity, if nothing else. But this system lies beyond their current exploration range. By the time they develop the capability to reach here, we'll be long gone," Wayne finished for her. "Or so well established that it won't matter." Kaya nodded, leaning against him as they sat on the edge of a cliff, overlooking one of Havan's crystalline plains. The intimacy between them had evolved naturally over their months of shared struggle and discovery, transcending the biological differences that might have seemed insurmountable under other circumstances. "Does it bother you," she asked softly, "knowing you'll never see Earth again, never speak with your own kind?" Wayne considered the question carefully. In his darkest moments, usually when facing some particularly challenging aspect of survival on this alien moon, he had indeed felt pangs of longing for the familiar comforts of Earth. But those moments had grown increasingly rare. "Sometimes," he admitted, "I miss certain things: ocean breezes, the sound of rain on leaves, my mother's cooking. But those are memories of specific experiences, not a longing for return." He tightened his arm around her shoulders. "Earth was my past. This is my future. Our future." Kaya's expression softened. "Our pattern," she murmured. "Our pattern," Wayne agreed. As the first year on Havan drew to a close, marked by their own improvised calendar, based on the moon's orbit around its gas giant Primary, they celebrated with a feast produced by their now fully functional food synthesizers. The meal wasn't elaborate by Earth standards, but it represented an important milestone in their shared journey, proof that they had not merely survived, but had begun to thrive in their new home. During that celebration, Kaya shared a discovery she had made in the recently activated memory cells, technical specifications for small exploration vessels that the original inhabitants of Havan had used to survey their neighboring moons and planets. Most of the craft were removed when the settlement was abandoned, she explained, projecting the schematics above their dining table. But, according to these records, at least 2 were left in storage facilities on the far side of Havan, placed in stasis for emergency use. Wayne studied the projected images with growing excitement. "If they're still intact, if we could get one operational, we could explore the system," Kaya finished for him. "Perhaps even establish contact with other forgotten outposts, if any still exist." The possibility opened new horizons in their shared vision of the future. They were no longer limited to this single moon, no matter how successfully they had adapted to it. An entire star system awaited exploration, perhaps even neighboring systems, if the vessel's capabilities matched the impressive specifications in the records. The search for the storage facilities became their next major project. Using the installation's partially restored sensors, they mapped the moon's surface with increasing precision, identifying potential locations that matched the descriptions in the memory cells. Expeditions to these sites sometimes yielded nothing but natural formations, or ruins too degraded to identify. But every false lead taught them more about Havan's geography and helped refine their search parameters. 3 months into their second year, they finally located what appeared to be an intact storage facility embedded within one of Havan's mountain ranges. The entrance was concealed by millennia of micrometeorite impacts and geological shifts, but the scanner Kaya had assembled from components throughout the installation detected the unmistakable energy signature of stasis technology still functioning within. It took weeks of careful excavation to clear the entrance, without risking structural damage to what lay beyond. When they finally breached the outer door, they were met with a rush of preserved atmosphere, stale but breathable, a testament to the incredible durability of the ancient engineering. Inside, illuminated by their portable lights, stood two vessels, exactly matching the schematics from the memory cells. They were smaller than Wayne had imagined, roughly the size of Earth shuttlecraft, but their elegant design suggested capabilities far beyond their modest dimensions. Their gleaming hulls showed no sign of the passage of thousands of years, protected by the stasis field that had only deactivated when the door was opened. "They're beautiful," Wayne breathed, running his hand along the nearest vessel's smooth surface. "And they look operational." Kaya moved to what appeared to be a control console near the vessels. Her six-fingered hands moved across its surface with practiced ease, and the console responded with a soft glow, displays illuminating for the first time in millennia. "Stasis preserved them perfectly," she confirmed, reading the diagnostic information. "Power cells at 78% capacity. Life support systems intact. Navigation databases. Partially corrupted, but recoverable." She looked up at Wayne, her large eyes shining with excitement. "We could launch tomorrow if we wanted to." Wayne laughed, the sound echoing in the cavernous storage facility. "Tomorrow might be a bit ambitious. We should run more diagnostics, familiarize ourselves with the controls, plan our first expedition carefully." "Always the cautious archaeologist," Kaya teased, but her tone was affectionate. She understood, as he did, that their survival depended on careful planning and risk assessment. One impulsive decision could end everything they had built together. Over the next several weeks, they divided their time between their established home in the central installation and the newly discovered storage facility. Kaya focused on mastering the vessel's control systems and restoring the corrupted navigation databases, while Wayne documented the facility itself and the various support equipment they had found alongside the vessels. As they worked, Wayne noticed something changing in Kaya, a new vitality, a sense of purpose that went beyond mere survival, or even their shared research. She spent long hours with the memory cells, accessing information she didn't immediately share with him, her expression increasingly thoughtful during their evening conversations. "What are you looking for in the cells?" he finally asked one night as they prepared for sleep. "You've been spending more time with them than usual." Kaya hesitated before answering, her gaze directed toward the window, where the gas giant hung in the night sky. "I've been searching for information about others like me," she admitted. "Pattern bearers who might have escaped the Empire before reclamation became widespread." Wayne sat beside her, taking her hand in his. "Do you think there are others that they might have found refuge beyond Imperial space?" "The memory cells contain references to Exodus events during the Pattern Schism," Kaya explained. "Groups of dissenters establishing colonies in distant systems beyond the Empire's reach at that time. If some of those colonies survived." "You want to find them," Wayne realized, "to connect with others who share your heritage." Kaya nodded, her expression both hopeful and apprehensive. "Is that wrong? We've built something precious here, you and I. Our pattern is perfect in its way. But sometimes I wonder if there are others who might understand aspects of my experience that you cannot through no fault of your own." Wayne considered her words carefully. There was truth in them, a truth he had occasionally faced himself, when something uniquely human, a reference to Earth culture, a joke that didn't translate a visceral reaction rooted in his biology, created momentary distance between them. They had bridged those gaps with patience and love, but they remained distinct beings from different worlds. "It's not wrong," he assured her, squeezing her hand gently. "It's entirely natural to wonder, to want connection with others who share your experiences. If there are more pattern bearers out there, we should try to find them. It doesn't diminish what we have. It expands our understanding of the universe and our place in it." Relief softened Kaya's features. "You understand, then?" "I am an archaeologist," Wayne reminded her with a smile. "Understanding those different from myself is what I was trained to do. Besides, I'm curious too. The prospect of discovering cultures that developed beyond imperial influence, preserving aspects of your people's heritage that might otherwise be lost. It's compelling from a research perspective, as well as a personal one. With this new shared purpose, their preparation for the vessel's first launch took on additional significance. They weren't just exploring for the sake of curiosity now. They were searching for connections for community beyond their isolated existence on Havan. The day of the first launch arrived almost exactly 2 years after their arrival on the Moon. They had prepared meticulously, running every diagnostic, studying the vessel's systems, until they could operate them in their sleep, plotting a conservative course that would take them to the nearest neighboring moon and back. As they boarded the vessel, they had named Harmony, a nod to both Kaya's concept of pattern harmony and the human value of living in accord with others. Wayne felt a familiar mix of apprehension and exhilaration. It reminded him of his first off-world assignment, the moment when theoretical knowledge gave way to direct experience. Kaya took the pilot's position naturally, her hands moving across the control surfaces, with confidence born of countless hours of practice. Wayne occupied the co-pilot seat, responsible for navigation and communications, though the latter would have little practical use in an uninhabited system. "Ready?" Kaya asked, her voice steady, despite the momentous nature of what they were attempting. Wayne nodded, completing his final pre-launch checks. "All systems nominal. Flight path calculated and locked. We're go for launch." The storage facility ceiling retracted with surprising smoothness, revealing the star-filled sky above. Harmony's engines hummed to life, a barely perceptible vibration that spoke of immense power held in perfect balance. With graceful precision, Kaya guided the vessel upward, breaking free of Havan's minimal gravity with ease. As they ascended, the full grandeur of their surroundings became apparent. The gas giant, which they had named Sentinel, filled half the sky, its banded atmosphere swirling with storms larger than Earth, its ring system glittering like a cosmic crown. Around it orbited at least 7 moons, of which Havan was the third. Their destination, the fourth moon, grew slowly larger in their forward viewport. "It's breathtaking," Wayne said softly, the scientist in him momentarily overtaken by simple wonder. "All this time on Havan, and we never truly appreciated the scale of this system until now." Kaya nodded, her attention divided between the stunning view and the vessel's controls. "The original inhabitants called this system Nexus," she informed him, drawing on information from the memory cells. "They believed it represented a convergence of cosmic patterns, a natural harmony that reflected their own ideal society." "Nexus," Wayne repeated, testing the name. "It fits." The journey to the fourth moon took approximately 4 hours, during which they conducted additional tests of the vessel's capabilities. Its speed, maneuverability, and sensor range all exceeded the specifications they had studied, suggesting that the original builders had deliberately understated the craft's potential, perhaps as a security measure. As they approached the moon, which preliminary scans showed to be rocky and airless, their sensors detected something unexpected, a faint energy signature emanating from a crater near the equatorial region. It wasn't strong enough to indicate a functioning installation like the one on Havan, but it was definitively artificial. "Should we investigate?" Wayne asked, though he already knew the answer. "Of course," Kaya replied, adjusting their flight path to approach the source of the energy reading. "That's why we're here, isn't it, to discover?" They circled the crater several times, sensors gathering data on the anomaly below. The energy signature appeared to be coming from a structure partially buried by an ancient impact event, only its upper portion visible above the lunar regolith. "It's similar to the memory cell technology," Kaya observed, studying the sensor readings. "But the pattern is different, more focused, more directional. It could be a communication relay of some kind." Wayne checked the vessel's environmental systems. "The structure appears to be sealed, and our suits should protect us from any radiation. I think we can risk a surface excursion." Landing Harmony on the crater's rim, they prepared for extravehicular activity. The environmental suits stored aboard the vessel were designed for the original inhabitants of the system, but they adjusted adequately to both Kaya's and Wayne's physiologies, another testament to the adaptability of the ancient technology. Stepping onto the surface of the fourth moon was another milestone in their shared journey. The airless landscape bathed in the combined light of the distant sun, and the reflected glow from Sentinel created a landscape of stark contrasts, brilliant illumination alongside impenetrable shadows. They made their way carefully down the crater's inner slope toward the partially buried structure. Up close, it was clearly architectural in nature, with deliberate geometric patterns that resembled the designs on Kaya's skin. An entrance was visible, where the impact had sheared away part of the outer wall, revealing corridors within. "The energy signature is stronger here," Kaya noted, checking her portable scanner. "Definitely active, not just residual." They entered the structure with caution, their suit lights illuminating corridors that had never been designed for illumination. This had clearly been an automated facility, not meant for regular visitation. After navigating a series of increasingly narrow passages, they emerged into a chamber that immediately explained the nature of the structure. In the center of the circular room stood a device unlike any they had seen in the installations on Havan. It resembled a memory cell in its crystalline composition, but it was oriented horizontally positioned to point toward a specific section of the sky, visible through a precisely aligned aperture in the ceiling. "It's a beacon," Kaya breathed, approaching the device with evident wonder. "A directional signal transmitter aimed at something." She consulted her scanner, calculating the beacon's orientation. "A specific point in space, approximately 47 light-years from this system." Wayne felt a surge of excitement. "Could it be pointing toward one of those Exodus colonies you mentioned, the pattern bearers who left during the schism?" "It's possible," Kaya agreed, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "The directional focus would explain why the Empire never detected these transmissions, their narrow beam intended for a specific receiver." Working together, they documented the beacon thoroughly, its construction, its power source, the precise coordinates of its target. Though they couldn't access its internal programming with their portable equipment, the device's purpose seemed clear. It was maintaining a connection, a lifeline of information between this abandoned outpost and something, or someone, far distant. "We need to bring back more equipment," Wayne said as they completed their initial survey. "Interface more directly with its systems. Try to determine what it's transmitting and whether it's receiving any response." Kaya nodded, but her attention remained fixed on the device, her expression thoughtful. "Wayne," she said after a moment, "I think I can connect with it directly, like I did with the memory cells on Threr 9. Wayne frowned with concern. "Is that safe? This technology is similar but not identical to what we've worked with before." "Pattern recognizes pattern," Kaya reminded him, echoing what she had told him in the tower so long ago. "My genetic structure. The designs on my skin, they're not just decorative. They're functional, a biological interface that allows direct connection with this technology." It was a risk, but one that Kaya was uniquely qualified to assess. After further discussion, they agreed that she would attempt a brief, limited connection, while Wayne monitored her vital signs through their suit systems. Kaya approached the beacon, removing her gloves to expose her patterned blue hands. With obvious reverence, she placed them on the crystalline surface of the device. Immediately, the patterns on her skin began to glow with the same soft light that emanated from the beacon. For several minutes, Kaya remained motionless, her eyes closed in deep concentration. Wayne watched anxiously, ready to break the connection if her vital signs showed any distress. But her readings remained stable, her breathing deep and regular, despite the evident intensity of the experience. Finally, she withdrew her hands and stepped back, her expression one of profound wonder. "What did you learn?" Wayne asked when she remained silent. "Everything," she whispered. "The beacon is maintaining contact with a colony. Not just any colony, a thriving settlement of pattern bearers established generations ago on a world they named Harmony." She looked at Wayne, her large eyes bright with emotion. "They escaped before the Empire consolidated power, preserving the original culture, the true meaning of the patterns." "Where exactly?" Wayne pressed, caught up in her excitement. In a system called Lyra 9, 47 light-years from here, Kaya replied. Far beyond Imperial space in a region the Empire believes uninhabitable due to radiation from a nearby nebula. But the pattern bearers adapted using their genetic flexibility to thrive where others couldn't survive. The implications were staggering. Not just a few refugees or a struggling outpost, but an entire civilization of Kaya's people, living freely beyond the Empire's reach, preserving the culture and knowledge that the Empire had tried to erase. "Can we contact them?" Wayne asked. "Let them know you're here, that there's another pattern bearer who escaped reclamation." Kaya nodded slowly. The beacon is bidirectional, though its primary function is to receive reports from various outposts, like this one, throughout the region. I've added my pattern signature to its transmission buffer. When it next activates approximately 26 hours from now, that signature will be transmitted to Harmony. And then we wait, Kaya said simply. If they recognize my pattern as authentic, as belonging to one of their own, they may respond. They may even send someone to investigate. Her voice caught slightly on the last words, revealing the depth of emotion beneath her outward calm. They returned to Harmony with a new sense of purpose. Their initial exploratory mission transformed into something far more significant. The discovery of the beacon and its connection to a thriving pattern-bearer colony had given Kaya something she had believed lost forever: the hope of reconnection with her cultural heritage, with others who shared her unique biology and history. As they prepared for the return flight to Havan, Wayne found himself contemplating what this discovery might mean for their future together. If contact was established with the colony, if they found a way to reach Lyra 9, would Kaya choose to stay with him, or would she be drawn to rejoin her own kind? He didn't voice these concerns during the journey back to Havan, focusing instead on planning their next steps, returning to the beacon with more equipment, establishing a monitoring station to detect any response, perhaps even preparing Harmony for a longer-range expedition if warranted. It was only that night, as they lay together in their shared living space within the central installation, that Kaya addressed the unspoken question that hung between them. "You're worried," she said softly, tracing the lines of his face with a gentle, six-fingered hand. "About what happens if Harmony responds to my signal?" Wayne nodded, seeing no point in denial. "I want you to reconnect with your people, to reclaim the heritage that was nearly taken from you. But selfishly, I don't want to lose you." Kaya's expression softened. "Oh, Wayne," she murmured. "Do you still not understand after all this time? Our pattern, yours and mine together, is unique, precious. Finding others like me doesn't mean abandoning what we've built." She touched the pendant that still hung around his neck. "We are connected, our patterns intertwined in ways that transcend biology or culture. Nothing can change that." Relief washed through Wayne at her words. Of course, she wasn't suggesting abandonment. Kaya, who understood the value of connection better than anyone who had risked everything to preserve her identity, would never discard the bond they had formed. Besides, she added, with that almost smile he loved, "who says we have to choose between worlds? If contact is established, if a way is found to reach Lyra 9, perhaps we go together. Perhaps we become a bridge between human understanding and pattern-bearer knowledge. Perhaps our unique pattern has purpose beyond just our own happiness." It was a compelling vision, not just personal fulfillment, but a larger role in fostering understanding between different species and cultures. It resonated with Wayne's original purpose as an archaeologist: to preserve knowledge, to build connections across time and difference. "I'd like that," he admitted. "To think that what we've found together might benefit others, might help prevent the kind of erasure the Empire tried to inflict on you." Kaya nodded, her expression growing serious. "The Empire still exists. It still reclaims those it deems dissonant. If our discovery can help others escape that fate, or even challenge the Empire's practices, isn't that worth any risk?" It was Wayne knew. Their personal happiness, precious as it was, existed alongside a larger responsibility: the obligation to use their unique position to help others, to preserve knowledge that might otherwise be lost, to challenge systems of control that sought to erase difference in the name of harmony. 26 hours later, they were back at the beacon, their equipment upgraded and expanded to monitor the device's transmission cycle. As the predetermined moment approached, Kaya once again made direct contact with the beacon, her patterns glowing in synchronization with its crystalline structure. Wayne watched as the device's energy signature intensified its alignment, with the distant point in space becoming more precise. Though he couldn't perceive the transmission itself, the readings on their equipment confirmed that something was being sent, a complex pattern of data that included somewhere within its structure Kaya's unique signature. When the transmission cycle completed, Kaya withdrew from the beacon, her expression a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "Now we wait," she said simply. Their waiting took the form of action, continued exploration of the Nexus system, further restoration of the installation on Havan, regular monitoring of the beacon for any response. Weeks passed, then months, with no detectable change in the beacon's operation. Though disappointment crept in, they maintained their routine, finding purpose in their ongoing discoveries and in the life they had built together. It was during their 7th visit to the beacon, nearly 6 months after the initial transmission of Kaya's pattern signature, that they detected the change. The device's energy signature had shifted its transmission cycle, altered to a new frequency that their instruments initially struggled to analyze. Kaya made contact with the beacon once more, and this time her reaction was immediate and profound. She gasped, her body trembling slightly, as information flowed through the connection between her patterns and the device's crystalline structure. "They received it," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "My signature. They recognized it as authentic as one of their own." She opened her eyes, looking at Wayne with an expression of wonder. "They're sending coordinate specifications, instructions for modifying Harmony's drive systems to reach Lyra 9. The technical information was complex, requiring weeks of careful study before they felt confident in implementing the suggested modifications. The memory cells on Havan provided crucial context, confirming that what the colony proposed was theoretically sound, a method of faster-than-light travel that utilized the natural resonance between pattern-based technologies, essentially skipping across space by following lines of harmonic connection. It was risky, unprecedented in their experience, but also their only realistic chance of reaching a system 47 light-years distant within their lifetimes. Conventional travel, even with Harmony's impressive capabilities, would take decades at best. As they worked on the modifications, they also prepared the installation on Havan for potential long-term absence-setting automated systems to maintain the essential functions and establishing a secure repository for their research and discoveries. If something went wrong during the journey, if they never returned, at least their work would remain a testament to what they had learned and built together. The day of departure arrived exactly 3 years after their original arrival on Havan. Harmony, modified according to the colony's specifications, sat ready in the launch bay of the storage facility. They had loaded it with supplies, research materials, and personal items accumulated during their time on the moon. Most importantly, they carried with them the pendant that contained the essence of Kaya's twin, a connection to the past they would bring into an uncertain future. As they boarded the vessel for the final time, Wayne took a moment to look back at the installation that had been their home. Despite its initial state of decay, they had transformed it into a place of discovery, of growth, of connection. Whatever awaited them in the Lyra 9 system, this moon would always represent the beginning of their shared journey, the place where they had forged their unique pattern together. "Ready?" Kaya asked from the pilot's position, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. Wayne took his seat beside her, completing the pre-launch sequence with practiced ease. "Ready," he confirmed. "Let's see what harmony truly means." Harmony rose from the surface of Havan with graceful precision, ascending above the moon that had been their sanctuary. Below them, the crystalline plains glittered in the light of Sentinel, a farewell display of beauty that neither would ever forget. Above the stars beckoned countless points of light, representing worlds' unknown civilizations, undiscovered patterns, waiting to be recognized. As they cleared Havan's minimal gravity, Kaya activated the modified drive system. The vessel hummed with new energy, the crystalline components they had integrated into its structure resonating with the patterns on Kaya's skin and the pendant around Wayne's neck. "Pattern recognizes pattern," Kaya said, softly, placing her hands on the newly installed control interface. "Harmony finds harmony." The stars around them seemed to stretch to bend in ways that defied conventional physics. Wayne felt a sensation similar to their original transmission from Threer 9, a separation, a transcendence of normal space-time. But this time, they remained within the protective embrace of Harmony's hull. In that moment between spaces, as they followed the resonance pattern toward a distant world, where others like Kaya waited, Wayne understood with perfect clarity what they had truly discovered on their journey. It wasn't just survival, or escape, wasn't just knowledge or technology. It was the fundamental truth that connection transcends difference, that harmony emerges not from enforced conformity, but from the resonance between distinct patterns. And as harmony carried them toward a new beginning, toward a future, they would shape together with others who valued both individuality and connection. Wayne and Kaya embodied that truth, two beings from different worlds, different biologies, different histories whose patterns had nonetheless found perfect resonance. The vessel vanished from the Nexus system in a flash of light that briefly outshone Sentinel's rings, leaving behind only the installation on Havan as testament to their time there. But they carried with them something more valuable than any physical artifact, the living archive of their shared experience, their love, their pattern. It was, after all, the pattern that mattered, not the materials that composed it, or the space it occupied, but the unique configuration of connection that gave meaning to existence. And whether in the ruins of Threer 9, the restored chambers of Havan, or the unknown terrain of Lyra 9, that pattern would endure, would grow, would inspire others to seek their own harmony in a universe of infinite possibility.